Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. On this, already it's an Erev Shabbos. Already another Erev Shabbos.
Rabbi, can I give you a name for a yard site?
Yes.
Nehemiah Bas Moshe.
Nehemiah Bas Moshe?
Tova.
Oh, Tova Henya Bas Moshe.
Yes.
Who is that?
My grandmother.
So tonight's shir is dedicated to Nishmas Tova Henya Bas Moshe on her yahrzeit. Mark's grandmother. She should have a lichter Gan Eden. She should be a militzis yosher for our family, for all of us, and all of Klal Yisrael. Thank you. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol niyeh b'dvarav. We're dedicated by A.B. Tzvai for Nachas from his family, by Michal Avram Chavin. We start on the bottom line, not bottom line, but towards the bottom of Tzadik Aleph Amid Beis. We are holding no, we're starting at the top of Tzadik Beis Amid Aleph. Sorry, right before the Mishnah, on the top of Tzadik Beis Amid Aleph. I'm not sure what that message was. We welcome in Irving Fishbaum, Shalom Fogel, Aaron Swade, Baruch Ian, Eddie Chazan, Nachman Chaplin, Marshall Castle, Mark Frankel, who was missing in action, and Ben Zion Cohn, Yitzi Fuchs, Moshe Lehman, Yitzi Muller, Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg, Rabbi Kranz, Shelley Zeitlin, Naftali Javlon, Saba, who is coming now to join us. And here, Baruch Hashem, in the shul, we have a very nice crowd with Gedalia Engel, Reb Kramer, Rich Lenner, Berish Gesserman, Avram Rezepkowitz, Michal, and Ruvain. So that's too shy of a minyan. So we're getting closer. Hi, Mami. Good to see you. Mo Kushner is here. Let's see if Mo is home. Mo, you're home? Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem, Mo is home.
Baruch Hashem.
Unbelievable. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem.
I came home today.
Mo, we're so happy for you. But
thank you, Rabbi.
But take it easy now, Mo. You know.
Fine. My kids came down. They always pick me up when I fall down.
Mo, no tennis, Mo, till next week. No tennis till next week. Yeah, pickleball maybe, but no tennis till next week.
Stay away from them hot dogs, too.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. He's 97 years old. He was in the hospital last night. He was on from the hospital. Now he's home. Unbelievable.
Go fishing.
Okay. So the Gemara tells us, "Ubechamor kishi parekes." The donkey could eat when it's being unloaded. So the question is, while it's being unloaded, what should it eat? Kishi pareches me'echan achla. When it's being unloaded, where should it eat from? Says the Gemara, Ema ad shetehei parekes, until it's unloaded, it could have from what's on its back, from what it's carrying. Now, this is a new idea, because the idea of an animal eating is that you can't muzzle it because it's a tsar that it can't eat what's in front of it. But this is in back of it. So it's a chiddush that it's allowed to eat it. Tanino hadid tan rabbanan. Chamar v'gamal, a donkey and a camel, oichlin memasui she'al gabeim. They could eat from the burden on their back. Or b'vat shelo yitlu b'yoda v'yachilim. What the animal turns its head and eats from what's hanging down, that he could eat. But the owner can't go ahead and feed it, or the rider can't go and feed it. Now, the next Mishnah starts an interesting discussion. Marshall is working in my vineyard. Marshall wants to eat enough that he doesn't have to eat. It's Monday. He wants to eat so many grapes that he doesn't have to eat till Shabbos. He wants to pack it in. Is he allowed to? Is he allowed to eat more than his pay? I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, how much is he allowed to eat? So oichel poyel kishus. It's very interesting that it seems to be at the time of the Gemara, the kishus, whether it's cucumbers or squash, was an expensive item. So oichel poyel kishus. Marshall could eat the cucumbers afilu b'dinner, even if it's a dinner's worth, even though he's only paid a sixth of that. Could eat 6 times more than he's paid. Kaiseves, dates, va'afilu b'dinner. Even if he's eating a dinner's worth, mamish, a dinner of a dinner.
Yes.
Rabbi Lazar Chisma Amar. Rabbi Lazar Chisma says, Lo yoichel poy yeser al schoroi. Rabbi Lazar Chisma says that a worker can't eat more than his wage. We assume that the wage is what he's going to eat for the day. That's he works for what he's going to eat for the day, and he can't eat more than his wage, because that would be eating more than a day's worth of food. The Chachamim matir, and the Chacham will allow it. Now it sounds to be that the Chacham say the same thing as Tanakama. The Gemara will explain what the Machlokes is. However, we tell Marshall, slow down, buddy. Don't eat so much, because then nobody is going to hire you. You know, we give him some sound business advice, like Marshall doesn't know. He's already, his pictures are already plastered in every post office in the town. But the Gemara says, we teach a person not to be a glutton, and then he'll shut the door for any future employment. So right away the Gemara says the Chacham say that he could eat as much as he wants. Chachamim hainu Tanakama. So the Gemara says no. Ikabinayu avol melamdin. The difference between them is whether we give him this advice. The Tanakama leslei melamdin. The Tanakama says, look, the Torah says kisavai b'keren reyecha. He could eat. Don't give advice connected what it says in the Torah. The Torah says a worker could eat. If he wants to eat us out of house and home, don't. Where's Marshall? He went to eat something. Oh, he's there.
Always eating something.
Yeah.
What do you...
So, but anyway, the Tanakama says don't give him such advice. The Tanakama leslei melamdin, the Rabbanan islu melamdin. I think I once told you there's an interesting situation was brought to the Maram Padav. What happened is a man had wicked children, very, very wicked children. They were Machal Shabbos. They were wicked children, So he left a tzava that the chachamim of the town should give his money, mechayim. They should give his money to what they think is the best purpose. So there was a whole discussion if it should be used for pidyon shvuyim, if it should be used for Talmidei Chachamim learning, and they went to the Maram, and the Maram said that they should give it to the children. Because that's what the Torah says, to give Yerusha goes to the children. And if the children weren't good, Mitzvah Hashem, they'll have good grandchildren. So you don't get smarter than the Torah. There's a lot of discussion about that. Is that always the case? What about if somebody wants to give to his daughters the same way as to his sons? Could he circumvent the Yerusha? There's a lot of discussion about this topic. Would the Rabbeinu Shalom want us to do a heter mechira? Right? The Chazon Ish didn't hold of the heter mechira. The heter mechira was something that was very, very debated. What I'm talking about heter mechira is some people allowed the farmers to sell their lands to goyim for shemitah and then work them. And this was a very big thing, because otherwise it means not having parnasa for the whole year. And it's more than just not having parnasa for the whole year. They had leases on machinery, and what do you do with paying the leases in the year that you don't have work? It's a whole Alamais is the Chazon Ish, and most of the yeshiva shegdalim were vehemently opposed to the heter mechira. Another example is pruzbel. Now, pruzbel is a device we were getting around the release of the debts. Another question is mechiras chametz. So all of these things, fall in the, I guess the word would be the rubric of this question. There's another pshat, what the machlokes is between the Tanakama and the Chachamim Basroi. Ikmeinaya Ravasi. Here's an interesting shaila. The Amar Ravasi afilu loisachru eluliftzar eshkol echad. Let's say I hire Marshall to cut down one cluster. Could he eat that cluster? Well, the Torah says that he could eat. Right? So afilu loisachru says afilu loisachru eluliftzar eshkol echad oichlai. He's allowed to eat it. I'll be left with nothing. V'amar Ravasi then says another halacha, that afilu loibatzer ela eshkol echad oichlai. If I hire Marsha to harvest my grapes, the very first cluster he harvests, he could eat, even though he didn't put anything into my basket yet. But the very first cluster he harvests, he could eat. V'tzricha. And we need to teach both of these halachas. First, that if there's only one cluster, Marshall, he could eat that cluster. And if he's cutting a lot of clusters, he could eat the very first cluster that he cuts. V'tzricha, you have to teach both halachas. Where it's only one cluster, well, mishum deloyikil meisav l'kelev shel balabayis. That's because if he eats it, there's nothing to put into the utensils, and you can't say he can't eat it because a pile is allowed to eat. So there he could eat. But where there is a cluster to put into the utensils of the balabais, and he could eat the second cluster, I might think he has to put first a cluster into the basket of the balabais, and only then partake. However, and if we say that in the second case, that Marshall could eat the first cluster when there's other clusters, that's because the efshel kiyuma l'b'seif, because later on the master will get something. But if the master will end up not getting anything, I might think not tzricha. So The Gemara wants to say that the machlokes between the Rabbanan in the Reisha and the latter Rabbanan is if with this halacha, if you're allowed to eat the cluster if there's only one cluster. As we welcome in Ruvain Pollack joining us. Did I welcome everybody? Yeah, I did. Yeah, but a lot of people came afterwards. I see A. Barbach came, Moshe Lehman, Ruvain Pollack. Well, welcome everybody. This is a very interesting thing. You know, we learn that a worker, when Marshall works in my field, he could eat. But there is an opinion that anybody that comes into my vineyard could eat. Because it says, Ki savai b'kerem re'echa. If everybody could eat that comes into my vineyard can eat, then they'll eat me out of house and home. I'll have nothing. You know, Rich says that's ridiculous. So it might mean that whoever comes into my vineyard could work and eat. Let's see it inside. Says the Gemara, Iba Yesema, Iki Benaya Derav, the Amarav Matsasi Megillah Sisarim. Now this term, Megillah Sisarim, is a very interesting thing. At that time, Torah Shebaal Peh was still forbidden to be written down. The idea was that the oral law initially was not supposed to be written. And that's there's a very important reason why the oral law was not supposed to be written. Because the fact that the oral law now is written means that you don't have to have a Rebbe. When the oral law wasn't written, there was no way for you to learn without a Rebbe. So that ensured that the Messiah was safe. But because of persecution, if it wasn't written down, it wouldn't have been preserved. So it says, Eis Lasois Lashem, Hey Pharaoh Sarisech. There were things that were Chidushim that they wrote down in private that it shouldn't be forgotten, and they hid it away. That's called the Megillah Sisarim. So the Amarav Matzasi Megillah Sisarim Bei Rab Chia, in the Academy of Rab Chia, because of Isi ben Yehuda Aimer, Isi ben Yehuda says, Ki savai b'kerem re'echa, b'bias kol adam ha'kosim medaber. It's talking about not just the worker. Anybody that comes into Rich's field could eat. So, V'amarav, lo shavak isi chaya l'chol beria. Isi won't allow anybody to survive. If everybody could come in, Rich won't have enough grapes, to snack on. Everybody could come in. So, Amarav Ashi, Amrisa l'shmaitze kami de Rav Kahana. I said this over before Rav Kahana, and it was suggested Dilma ba'oisim b'sudasan. Maybe it means that they could come in if they eat for their keep. In other words, they do enough work to pay for what they take. Says the Gemara, Da'avdu va'achlu. Amali, so he said to me, even so people would not be masking to this. You know why? It's very simple. A worker comes and works the whole day. How much, like Marshall said, how many grapes could he have? We're not talking about frankfurters. We're talking about grapes. How many grapes can he have? But if 3 dozen people could come in and each one works for their food, then that means they'll be eating many times. It'll be a very big loss. Amali afilu hachi nechle leinish leoger agure. To hire workers, v'niktafei lepardise, and only those workers will partake. People will come in, 3 dozen people will come in, they'll all have the grapes that they're hungry for. It's going to really wipe out the carrot. Now, the Gemara declares another shayla. Mark is working for me, so he gets to eat the grapes. His license to eat the grapes, how do we look at it? Is it like an addition to his salary? That the Torah says, besides getting paid, you also have to give him a bonus that you let him to eat the grapes. But that's like an addition to his salary. Or is it a gift from heaven that while he's in the field, heaven allows him to have the grapes? Because it would be hard for him to work without eating the grapes. So heaven allows him to have the grapes. The Gemara says the difference between these two ways of learning is the question of... are you okay?
Yeah.
The difference between these two ways of learning is the question of whether he could give it to his wife or his children. He doesn't want it, but he wants to give it to his wife and his children. If you learn that it's a bonus, so he could give his bonus, assign his bonus to someone else. But if it's a gift from heaven that heaven doesn't want him to work and not eat, if he chooses not to eat, he can't assign it to anybody else. Heaven didn't give it to anybody else. So let's see it inside. Does he eat because it's like an addendum to his salary? Or does he eat from heaven? What's the difference? Where he says, give it to my wife, my children. If it's like a bonus, so then Yalvinolu, he could say, I choose not to eat it, but I assign it to my children. But if it's because heaven didn't want him to work and not eat while he's working, the Torah gave it just to him. So, Rahman, the Torah didn't give it to anybody else. So, what's the din? So, Tashma, we learned in our Mishnah, Eichel Payel Kishas, a Payel could eat cucumbers, Vafilu bedinner. Even if he's going to have a dinner, which is a zuz, worth of cucumbers. Kaiseves, Vafilu bedinner. Now, if we say that he eats because it's a bonus to his salary, if it's a bonus to his salary, it's not likely that we give a bonus of 6 times his salary. As the Gemara proceeds to say, we hire him for 1/6 of a zuz, and achel b'zuz, a zuz is a dinner, his wage is 1/6 of a zuz, and the bonus is a zuz. Ve'elamai mishamayim shel shamayim o'echel, Hashem gives him a gift. Saif, oiger b'danka, doesn't make sense that he's hired for 1/6 of a zuz, and achel b'zuz, and Hashem will give him a gift of 6 times his salary. Elamai yislach l'meima rachman zachalei. The Torah says, yes, while he's working, it's not right to deprive him of eating. And if he's hungry for that amount, we give him taka 6 times his wage. We could say it with both pshatim. We could say it if it's mishaloi, because he's given an addition to his salary for what he's able to eat while he works, or it's a gift from Hashem. Tajma, Rabbi Loza Chisma Amar, Lo yoichel poyel yoiser al schoroi, a worker should not eat more than his wage, b'chachamim matirin. So my lab, b'hakamiflagi, the marsavar mishaloyu oichel, it's a bonus. And if it's a bonus, they wouldn't make it more than his wage. Or marsavar mishal shamayim oichel, says, well, no. Everybody holds that it's a bonus on his wage. But the question is, the Torah says that he eats kinafshecha. Now, what does it mean, like your life? So, Mar Savar Kinafshecha means B'davar Shemoiser Nafshay Alav. It says that a person, for his salary, he risks his life. That's the way it is. People risk their lives for their salary. They climb up on high trees. They climb up on ladders. So therefore, we darshan Kinafshecha, that you could only eat like your salary, and not more than your salary. Omar Savano, we learned something else out from Kinafshecha. I don't know if you remember, but we had a drasha Kinafshecha that the worker is like the balabas. Just like the balabas, if he wants to work in the field and he's on a diet, he could muzzle himself and work in the field. So you could also muzzle your worker. You would have to pay him for what he's not able to eat, but you could muzzle him. It's not like an animal. The owner could muzzle himself. He could muzzle the worker. He would have to pay him the food that he would have eaten, but he's allowed to muzzle him. Tajma, Nazir she'amar tnu le'ishtay lebanav. If a Nazir who's not allowed to eat in the vineyard, if the Nazir says give it to his wife and his children, ain't shaymin like, we don't listen to him. But the Gemara says, why? If we hold that it's a bonus, why can't he do with the bonus whatever he wants? You see, if you say it's Mina Shemayim, we could say Shemayim only gave it to him. He didn't give it to the wife and the daughters. But if it's a bonus, so Amai ain't Shayim, why can't he assign the bonus to his wife and his children? Says the Gemara, no, over there it's a knas. Because as a Nazir, he shouldn't be working in the vineyard. We say that you shouldn't be Leich amal nazira, as the Gemara says. Hasam mishum leich amar nazira. Go away, the Nazir. Schar, go around. Lekarma leisikra, don't come near a vineyard. You might come to eat there. It's forbidden. You can't have chartzanim, you can't have zogin, you can't have the skins, you can't have the kernels, or the other way around. So therefore we counsel him that he can't give it to his wife and children. It's a different reason. Tashma, Payel Shamar Tanula Ishti Ubanai, if a worker says, give it to my wife, to my children, ain't Shaymin Lai. But why not? If it's an addendum to his salary, why can't he assign it to his wife and children? Vi Amrit Mishalayu Aichalamai ain't Shaymin Lai. Says Gemara, my Payel, what kind of work are we talking about? A Nazir. And it's because of the Knas. Says the Gemara, Vatanya Nazir, we have one brisa that says Nazir, Vatanya Pal, another brisa that says a worker. Isn't that teaching us another halacha? So he says, no, Midei Gabi Adadi Tanyan. This brisa, one brisa was said in one yeshiva, and there they called it Nazir, and in another brisa it said a worker, it was referring to a Nazir. Tajma, Minayin Leployel Sha'amar Tanula Ishti Yobanai. How do we know a worker that says, give it to my wife and children, Shein Shaymin Lai, that we don't listen to him? Shenema, because it says, Vel Kel Yechaloi Site. It says that you shouldn't put it in your basket. You could eat it, but you shouldn't put it in your basket. By assigning it to your wife and children, it's like putting it in the basket. Now, V'chite Mahachinami Nazir, if it means a Nazir, then that reason isn't because of El Kel Yechaloi Sitein. The reason is because of Knas, that he shouldn't work in the vineyard. Ihachi Mishum El Kel Yechaloi Sitein is the reason because of that we die, that it's like putting it in his basket. Mishum Leich Amar Naziru. Says the Gemara, Einachanami. The real reason is because of a Knas, because he shouldn't be working in the vineyard. But since we call him a worker, we bring a pasuk of a worker. It's a little bit of a daicha teretz, but Toshma, bottom line, Tzadik Beizam and Aleph, Toshma. You know, I have a bit of a headache tonight, which usually it diffuses when I start learning. And tonight it's not diffusing. And just want to say that whenever we learn with some difficulty, it makes the reward of our learning that much more. So it's late in the night, and it's a long week, and we learn it anyway. The reward is tremendous. Lefum tzara agra.
You're still doing the chak afterwards?
Yes.
Okay.
Chak tonight. Amen. Chak tonight. That's the plan. The Mishnayos is already done, and Michal Avram is going to bring the green screen, and we're going to have a chak. Mitzvah Hashem. But first, let's do the daf. Tajma. Hasoicher es hapoyel liktzais b'te'enim. If I hire Mark to cut down figs, that's his job, right? To cut down figs. Harizeh oichel, so he's allowed to eat the figs and put them in a meiser. He's put them in a meiser. It's not considered a purchase. It's min hashamayim zeicher to it. Almanasha oichel ani oibonai. But if Mark says on the condition that I or my children could eat, o sheyoichel bonai bischari, or that my children should eat with the wage that you set for me. So in such a case, hu oichel potter, Mark could eat and he's exempt, but ubnai oichel v'chayev. But his son eats and he's chayev because that's considered like a purchase. But wait a second. If we hold that that Mark eats because it's an addendum to his salary, then his son is just eating his portion. Why does he have to take off meiser? V'yomer mishaloyu oichel b'noi amai chayev. Says, well, you're right. If really, you shouldn't have to take meiser. But it looks like a purchase. And we know a purchase is mechayev and meiser, so therefore you should take off meiser first. Tajma. Now here this is interesting. I hire Mark. I hire Mark to work in my vineyard in its 4th year. Now the 4th year, the fruits can't be eaten unless they're brought up to Yerushalayim, or if they're redeemed. Now I told Mark that it's a vineyard of Neter Ravai. So since I told him, he knew that he wouldn't be able to eat. And he agreed to that. I paid him, and he agreed to eat without. So however, if I hired Mark and I didn't tell him it was a Neter Ravai field, so Mark expected to eat, so then poido machilam, I have to redeem them and allow him to eat. But asks the Gemara, V'i amit mishel shemayim hu oichel. Why? If it's not an addendum to his salary, if it's something that Shemayim gave him, well, if he eats by Neter Ravai, Shemayim doesn't give it to him because Shemayim is not going to give him something forbidden. Amai poida machilan isura loizachel rachmana. The Torah didn't give him the gift if it's something that's awesome. Says, well, you're right. But it's a mekach tais. Because Mark thought that he was going to be able to eat. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taken the job. Hasam mishum demirze kemekach tais. Amos Sefer says, well, what about the following case? Nisparsu igulav or nispetchu Chav Yosef. If, let's say, my cake of figs unraveled, or my casks opened up, and I hired Mark to put the cake of figs back together again, or to reseal the casks, so then Mark can't eat. Why? Because we said once it's already chayiv and meiser, you can't eat anymore. And here it's already chayiv and meiser, because once it's made into cake of figs, or cake of dates, it's already chayiv and meiser. Once it's in the flask, in the cask, it's already chayiv and meiser. But if I didn't tell Mark that he would be working with this, meiser or machila. So again, it says the Gemara, if it's because he's awarded from heaven, amai ma'aser machilan. Why do I have to take off meiser and feed it to him? Isura loizachilu. The Torah wasn't mezakah to him when it's aser, right? The Torah, after it's already tithed, it's aser. So the Torah wasn't mezakah that to him. He thought it was because Mark thought he was being hired for something that he would be allowed to eat. So Bishleim in this parsui gulav, where the dates unraveled. So there, because Mark, when he was hired to put the dates into cakes, he didn't know it was once already a cakes and it got unraveled. He thought it was never made into cakes yet, and it was not chayiv ma'aser, and he would be able to eat it. Nispetchu chav Yosef, but where the casks were broken open, my mekach toisika. What's the mekach tois? Everybody knows that once it's made the yediyah, did full ma'aser. Everybody knows that it's in the casks already. It's chayiv ma'aser, and therefore it's not allowed to be eaten by the poil. There's no mekach tois. Says the Gemara, what happened is Amar Rav Sheshes shenispatku chav Yosef lebar. It's talking about where the cask burst and the wine spilled back into the vat. So Mark was hired to draw them into the vat. He therefore thought it was never yet chayiv ma'aser. But says the Gemara, wait a second. V'tanya yayin mishal yared labar. Wine, as soon as it's in the vat, it's already chayiv ma'aser. So Mark should have known already that he won't be able to eat because it's in the vat. Even if it's spilled into the vat, Mark should know already that he won't be able to eat it. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Akiva the Amar Mishi Yikpeh. It's going according to Rabbi Akiva, who holds that it's only chayiv and ma'aser when you remove the sediment from its top when it's in the vat. Mark didn't know. He thought already it was before it was chayiv ma'aser. So he'd be able to drink while he's removing the sediment. The name of lahu, but why couldn't I be able to say, well, Mark, you should have known Dilma Makfe. Maybe I already removed the sediment. Says, you know why Mark can't make that claim? It's ba'asra dahu gavra denogid, the one who pours it from the vat into the cask, iyo mekafa. He's the one that usually removes the sediment. So Mark therefore thought he's going to have time to drink wine while he's removing the sediment before it's chayiv ma'aser. Ba'ashta the Tani Rav Zvid b'direi Rabbi Yeshua. Ma'yayin misheyered labar v'yakafe, wine. When it's in the vat and the sediment is removed, that's when it's chayiv ma'aser. While Rabbi Akiva Amar misheyishle b'chavyus, when it's in the cask and the foam is skimmed off from the top of the cask, Afilu tema shaloinis patku chev yosef labar. Even you could learn even that the cask did not spill back in the vat. The Amrulay, Mark will say, Lo have yadin on the mashle. I didn't know that the foam was skinned off. And therefore, while I skim off the foam, I'll be able to drink the wine. But why can't I tell him, you should have thought that maybe Dilma Mashle, maybe the foam was already taken off, and therefore it's already Chayv Meiser. Says the Gemara Ba'asra, Dahu the Sarik, it's a place where the one that seals the cask, Hahu Mashle, he's the one that removes the foam. So therefore Marshall expected to be able to drink before he removes the foam. If the foam was already removed, so I have to give it to him because of Mekach Tois. Kashma, these dafin, although they're not as hard as the dafin, but they're very long, very long. Meir Shapiro wasn't planning for us to do a chok right after the daf. That wasn't the plan, but Baruch Hashem, we have hardy souls over here. Tajma. Koititz Adam al Yedei Atzmai, a worker could stipulate that he won't eat, and Mark says to me, Rabbi Weiss, I won't eat, taking $5 more an hour. That's the deal. I won't eat. Now he could do that for himself. He could also do it al yedei b'nayu bita egdailim. If his older son or his older daughter is working, he could say, they won't eat, pay them extra. Al yedei avdoi v'shivchasai agdailim, or his Eved and Shivcha Kanani, who are older, v'al yedei ishtai, and he could stipulate for his wife, mipnei sheyesh bem das. Aval eina kaitzis lo al yedei b'nayu bita ketanim. He can't stipulate if his son or daughter is young. V'lo al yedei avdoi v'shivchas ketanim. Again, that's talking about an Eved Kanani, because there's no Eved Ivri that's a cotton. V'lo al yedei behemta. He also can't stipulate that you'll pay me more and you could muzzle the animal. Of course, he can't do that because even the owner can't muzzle his animal. Because they don't have das. So the child, he can't stipulate for his minor children because they don't have das. Now, the Gemara grapples on this. So first of all, the Gemara assumes we're talking about children that the father is supporting. Now, why can't you stipulate for your minor children? If it's considered a bonus on the salary, and since he's supporting the minor children, so then the bonus is his. So why can't he stipulate even if they're minors? If it's min hashamayim, so then we say the Torah was mezaket to them, so then they would have to be meichel, and since they don't have das, they can't be meichel. So the Gemara says, that's why he can't stipulate, because the Torah awarded it to the children, and they don't have das to be meichel. And if it's from his own, in other words, that it's a bonus, well, since the children, even the minor children, are Seimech al Shulchana, he supports them, so that belongs to him, the bonus, so then why can't he stipulate that, give me more and I won't take the bonus? Says the Gemara, says the Gemara, here we're talking about B'she'ein malul lahem mezainas, where he's not supporting them. So then the Gemara counters right back at our face. If he's not supporting them, then even the adult children, he shouldn't be able to stipulate. Iachi Gedolim Nami, says the Gemara, well, even if the parents don't support the children, Gedolim Yodei V'Kamachli, they know, and they're Meichel. They're Meichel, and they say, okay, make more pay, and we won't eat. But the minor children, what's going to be with them? I'm sorry, but the minor children, since he's not supporting them, it belongs to the minor children, and they can't be Meichel because they don't have das. So the Gemara says that would be good, except in a brisa, it teaches us different about the avodim. Here we learned the avodim ben gedolim ben ketanim. He could by the avodim, by the gedolim, he could stipulate, but by the ketanim he can't. But in the brisa, we learn differently. But Tana Rabbi Ishia, this is a brisa of Rabbi Ishia. He could stipulate to get more and not eat for himself, al yidei ishtay, and for his wife. Avaloi al yidei behemtay, because we said you can't stipulate for an animal because even your animal you're not allowed to muzzle. Val yidei b'nai yobita agdailim, you could stipulate for your older children because they're moichel. Avaloi al yidei b'nai yobita ktanim, but not for your minor children. So here, different than we learned in the Mishnah, it says that by an Eved and a Shivcha, you could stipulate even for your Avodim that are Ketanim. So in my love, it's talking about where you're giving them support. And the argument is the Marsavar Mishaloy that it's an addition of bonus, and therefore, since he's giving the avodim support, so he could, like it says in the brisa, he could stipulate even for the minor avodim because he's giving them support. That it's coming from heaven, and if it's coming from heaven, then his minor avodim, even if he's supporting them, since they don't have das, they can't waive the right that's coming from heaven. So the Gemara says, no, we don't want to learn that way. The kuli alma mishaloi. Everybody holds that the what they're eating is like a bonus. V'loy kasha kan b'she'ein mala lahem mezainas, where he's not supporting them. So then the adult slaves are moichel, the minor slaves are not. Obraisa b'mala lahem mezainas. If he's giving them support, so then he could stipulate for both the older ones and the younger ones. So the Gemara says, "B'mayu kim to b'mala mazainis." Then, if he's giving them support, then he should be able to stipulate even for his minor children. Iachi ketanim nami noketzlu. He should be able to stipulate even for his minor children. Says the Gemara, minor children, the Torah did not give you the right to cause them the pain of working and not eating. Sarayu de b'nayu bitai, minor Evet Kanani is different, but Sarayu de b'nayu bitu aknanim lo yizachilei rachmana. The Torah did not award him, even though he's supporting them, to cause them that tzar. So now, here we have an interesting thing. We said that the Mishnah is talking that he's not giving them mezainis. So since he's not giving them mezainis, so then he doesn't have right to stipulate and cause them not to eat. But says the Gemara, there's a machlokes whether you could say up to your Eved that I'm not supporting you and you still have to work for me. Says the Gemara, "B'mayu kimta l'mas nisan, b'she'ein mal lehem mezainis," where you're not supporting them, and therefore that's why the younger avodim you cannot stipulate and take away their parnasa. Hanichalamandi Amar ain't a Rav Yochalayim Malay. The Rav can't say le'eved asay imi, work for me, ve'ini zamcha, and I won't support you, shopper. And Elamandi Amar Yochala Rav Loy Maleved asay imi ve'ini zamcha. He could say work for me, and I won't support you, and therefore he would still be able to stipulate, even though that does not cause the even though that causes that the minor worker will not get the food, but he could say, "Work for me, and I won't support you." Then my ikalamema. Ella says the Gemara, "You're right." It's talking about where he's not supporting them. And Tako Bahapliki, they're arguing about this. The Mar Sava Yochel, one says that he could tell his slave, "Work for me and I won't support you." And therefore, if he could say, "Work for me and I won't support you," so then he could stipulate that the Eved should work and not be able to eat. If it's a bonus, he could say, "Work for me and I'm not going to support you." So he could stipulate that he doesn't get the food. So the problem, though, is that Rabbi Yochanan the Amar Yochel, Rabbi Yochanan says that you can make such a stipulation. It would come out that Rabbi Yochanan is saying like the Bryce and not like the Mishnah. So Shavik Masnis involved with Bryce. Ella says the Gemara, the Kuli Alma Mishamayim Huach. The Gemara tries a whole different pshat. Everybody holds that they eat from heaven. And since they eat from heaven, then ketanim that are not a bardas are ketanim that are not a bardas cannot waive the right to stipulate. Says the Gemara, therefore, what does it mean when it says kaitzets? Or my kaitzets? Or my kaitzets to Amar Rav Aishia. And when Rav Aishia says in the Brisa that you could be kaitzets, it's talking about mezainis. It means that for the Eved and the Shivcha, the only way you could say that they're not going to eat while they work is if you assign food for them so that they won't be hungry. Says the Gemara, well, then that you could do by the animal too. You could feed the animal before, and then the animal won't eat. The kavosa gabe behemte. Tevenokitza. Therefore, that can't be the pshat of kaitzitz, because we said by an animal you're not allowed to do that. Ella baha kamiflagi. Rather, they're arguing as follows. Ella baha kamiflagi. Demar savar mishalayu eichel. The Mishnah. The Mishnah. Let's see. The Mishnah that says that you're not allowed to be kaitzes for an Eved cotton. The Brisa that says that you're allowed to be kaitzes for both an Eved cotton and an Eved gadol. It's talking about that mishalayhu eichel. It's talking about that it's a bonus, and therefore, since it's a bonus, and since you're malal lahen mezainis, so you could stipulate that that he shouldn't be you'll get more money, and he's not fit because since you're malal lahen mezainis, it's yours, and therefore you could stipulate that. Omar Savar and the Brisa and the Mishnah that says that you can't stipulate like an avid cotton holds Mishil Shemayim Uleichel, holds that it's a gift from heaven, and even though you're giving the support, but since it's a gift from heaven, they would need to be Meichel, and Ketanim are not Bar Mechila, therefore they can't be Meichel, and therefore you can't stipulate that you should get more money and they shouldn't eat because you can't take the gift away. This piece of Gemara was very difficult. So if you found it a little difficult, it's not because of the late hour, and it's not because of its end of the week. It might be because the Maggid Shir is not doing a good enough job, but
This tomorrow's a headache.
I need the green screen.
I'm full.
Okay, Rabbi Isai, we did the Mishnah Yomis already. Wow, it's 56 minutes. What a long Gemara.
Eat once a day, start in the morning. What time was
Good to have you.
Very good job.
Rabbi Isai, Motzei Shabbos is 10:35.
Okay, sure.
Motzei Shabbos 10:35. What is this? This was 92, right? Let's see.